Now, from cleaners to care workers, 3.5 million people have entrusted their pensions to the local government pension scheme. But Channel 4 News has discovered that councils are facing a massive multi-billion-pound pension shortfall after investing their money in the collapsing stock market. And we've uncovered worrying evidence about how individual authorities are running their schemes. Our economics correspondent Faisal Islam has this exclusive report.
The markets might be crashing, but council workers still expect to enjoy their retirement like this. Their pensions are currently guaranteed by Britain's largest pension fund, the local government scheme, which invests billions on their behalf each year into shares, bonds and property. But will we, the taxpayer, have to bail councils out if their investments go wrong? We've been working through the figures and speaking to experts who've been examining the local government scheme. We've uncovered some worrying evidence about its financial position. The final salary benefits offered by the local government scheme are supposed to be funded by its own £120 billion pot, much of which is invested in places like the city. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that a public sector pension fund like the local government scheme would be all about safety first, because it's taxpayer backed. But as we've discovered, that isn't necessarily the case. We've assessed council investments by comparing them to schemes in the private sector. Large private sector schemes typically hold around 53% in shares. The rest is generally invested in less risky things like government and corporate bonds. Councils on average invest 62% of their funds in shares, and some as high as 90%, and they've suffered some big losses as a result. Professor Philip Booth is a pension expert and director of the Institute of Economic Affairs. He believes that councils are taking on too much risk.
These pension funds are not supposed to take investment risks because the government is guaranteeing their pensions. And if the government is guaranteeing their pensions, then they should invest in instruments which provide the money that they will need in the future to pay these pensions with absolute certainty.
Here in Worcestershire, the council pension scheme has one of the biggest pension deficits of any local authority at £847 million. And we've uncovered that it's the biggest player in the stock market out of all the local schemes. It invests almost 9/10, that's 90% of all its pension cash in shares. And that means it's made some big losses. Since March 2007, the fund is down by £250 million. Worcestershire County Council said that over the past 5 years,
the rate of return on the fund's equity portfolio has exceeded that on its bond portfolio by 4.2%, which is ultimately to the benefit of the council taxpayer.
In addition, some councils are heavy investors in hedge funds. Welcome to Mayfair, capital of the world of hedge funds. We've learnt that one council, Avon, has put 1 in every £10 of its pensioners' money into hedge funds. That's 5 times the average of a private sector pension pot. And guess what? They've taken a hit. But it isn't just UK hedge funds. Channel 4 News has discovered that some of Avon's pensioners' money ended up in Bernard Madoff's fund. That money will probably never be recovered. And Avon weren't alone. Dorset's pension fund has also lost some £2 million to Madoff. These join the growing list of local government pensions reported to be involved with Madoff, including Hampshire, Merseyside and Clwyd. In a response, Avon told Channel 4 News,
"The investment strategy is adopted having taken professional advice. The pension fund has a range of assets, including equities, gilts and cash. Returns from hedge funds have significantly exceeded those for equity, thus reducing the impact in the fall in equities markets. The fund invested in Man Investments, which invested £550,000 in Madoff, amounting to 0.03% of the fund."
These recent losses mean just one thing: a growing black hole in the overall local government pension scheme. The government says it's £23 billion, but some experts say this understates the scale of the problem. John Ralph is the former head of finance at Boots. He's applied private sector accounting standards to the public sector local government scheme.
If you look on a proper private sector basis, given what's happened to the financial market, the value of equities that the local government pension schemes hold has plummeted like a stone, so therefore the total deficit is likely to be in the order of £50 billion, possibly rather more.
What does this actually mean for the already hard-pressed public purse? Councils already pump £5 billion a year into the scheme to keep it going. City financial advisors PricewaterhouseCoopers believe that this may need to double if the markets don't recover.
If they haven't, we're going to see large increases in council tax in a year or two's time to meet the shortfalls that have happened last year, the year before, or whenever on the stock market. And that's unfair also between generations. It's perhaps the council taxpayers of the next 5 years paying for the shortfalls of the investment of the last 5 years. This is real money that has to be found. It needs to go into the local government pension schemes. You can't put that off.
The government rejects the comparison between the local government scheme and the private sector. They say that year to year it has enough cash to cover its own costs, and the investment funds are for the long term.
The investment fund is there as a cushion or a safeguard to underpin the long-term viability. It allows us to take long-term investment decisions. It means that we can use a higher proportion of equity investments, which history tells us over 40, 50, 100 years, which some of these schemes have been going, provides a better dividend.
So the government says it has no problem with these funds betting heavily on the stock market. But the sharp fall in the value of some funds is raising serious questions about huge risks being underwritten by the public purse.